Start a video off by clearing my throat and coughing, and then don't re-record it. Let's see. It's 5:30 Eastern Standard Time. June 6, 2023. I actually remember the date today because 6/6/24 is the Diablo 4 release date, which I've been playing an hour in the morning and an hour at night. Pretty great lifestyle I have. 2 hours of lifting a day, 2 hours of Diablo. I worked for an hour. Today I'm actually working a second time because I had to pick up some merchandise from a local supplier, and I got 30-minute ride home, so I thought I'd make a little video here. I guess I should have teased what the video was so people would have cared and not tuned out. But I think I want to start making crypto content. See if that quiets the buzzing. I'm on the highway. I think I want to start making some crypto content on my other channel, Wright the Capitalist, which has got like 5,000 viewers. I haven't touched it in 3 years. I wonder what would happen if I reactivated it, if I'd actually get some people. My philosophy channel, I have to go through everything and figure out what's going on with it and put the metadata into, make some thumbnails, put the metadata into everything so it actually gets traction. But anyways, I was just thinking, because I'm in this project and I've been in it for almost 2 years now, called the Drip Network. It's a decentralized bank, if you will, that's community driven. The currency is inflatable and deflatable within the system, so it can follow natural market. One of the ideas of Forex, the developer of it, is to set it up in a way that it's not affected by the Bitcoin market, meaning currently most cryptocurrencies follow Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin goes up, they go up, and if it goes down, they go down, which makes sense because most cryptocurrencies that are on blockchains, you're technically buying Bitcoin first to get at them. They appear to be paired to USD, but a lot of this stuff's really paired to Bitcoin by the by the wallets they're held in. So if you buy something on an exchange and it's held there, most likely they don't have it tied up to actual USD. But anyways, what's beautiful about the DeFi, a couple of things, and why I like the Drip community so much, is not only is it decentralized, not only is it a community that has to stay educated as the new stuff evolves within the project, but it's also fun and creative. So like finance and economics and everything is so boring that most people aren't interested in learning about finances. And when people get involved in the game theory of what could keep a currency alive, they often just make it very dry. So at the Animal Farm project, the name of the project is based off the book. So you have like worker pigs, and you have dogs, and all the different animals. There'll probably be some more added to. you have a garden where you can farm liquidity tokens, their plants and seeds. So the game theory is set up where if you don't particularly understand just raw math, you can understand the ecosystem visually. There's actually a visual game you can play with the pig that you walk around. The burn mechanism. So the coin itself is inflationary in the fact that it's minted. And in order to give the 1% a day, the currency is minted, which means it's infinitely inflationary on its own. And the original project was a Ponzi scheme. And I shouldn't say scheme, but we call it Ponzi-nomics, which means you're getting paid off the entry of other individuals. So a lot of projects start like this. Most businesses start like this. So if you have a car company that's just beginning, you need people to buy into that car company in order to pay the individuals to make more cars, to make more parts, to have a mechanic, so that if you buy that car in the future, there's still going to be parts for that car. So if you bought a car today from a brand new company and it didn't exist tomorrow, then you wouldn't be able to get parts for it. The car is kind of useless. So at first, when you start any business that's got long-term effects, the original part of it is kind of a Ponzi-nomics, meaning you need more people. Now, slightly different with the cars, there's a utility. So if the company goes down, even though you can't fix the car, until it falls apart and you can't get replacement parts for it anymore, there is some utility. So the second part of the DeFi projects, once they're created, has to be some sort of utility within that project. And for the layperson, a utility just means a way to generate money from the project that's used to another individual, so that somebody is willing to put money in there. So it's not just money to make money. So you're not just putting in there $10, hoping the price goes up so you can sell it and get out, and then the next person's stuck. There's different ways to do this through trading and what have you. Now, Drip was the original manifestation, and what's going to be different about me if I make or end up making crypto videos is I'm not going to go into the white papers that much or the projects that much. That I'm going to leave to the people that are already doing that. I kind of want to get into the principles and the fundamentals, the philosophical aspect of these projects and how they work, so people can understand that in their mind, the why, and the whats, the wheres, and the whens. And then hopefully, if you like this stuff within the crypto thing, I'm going to transfer you over to my philosophy show, where we can take these types of principles and activities and put them into other facets of our life to improve our life morally and ethically using stated principles. So once you've created these projects, they're built on, from my understanding, what's called like blockchains. Some of them are built on the bridges. So let's go back, and then a lot of them are built on smart contracts. So basically, to put this in the simplest terms, blockchain is a digital piece of real estate on the internet that is stored value. And the amount of stored value is based on the pressure to sell because other individuals want to buy that real estate. And they want that real estate because it's stored value. Now, imagine you grow corn and you have years and years and years of corn. You take it off the ear, you got the kernels, and you want to trade those, and you got the guy up the street and he has apples. But corn and apples get harvested at different times of the year. So by the time the apples are ready and the corn are ready, they're ripe at different points in time. So in the past, you'd have to do direct trading, or you'd have to trade or barter for something that could stick around. So people would maybe sell their corn for wool, because wool could last longer, they needed it for clothes. And then they would trade the wool for apples when they were in season, or if they had apples and they held on to wool. Or they would do pelts. So they would take animal pelts that stayed stationary, that were good and useful for clothing and using hides to make instruments, clothing, chairs, all sorts of stuff, blankets. As time evolved, we used precious metals, stones, shells. It was a holding place. Basically saying, I created value for my fellow man, and this is how I know, because I have this here, this is value. And then people lost track of what those IOUs were, because they used to be precious metal, and then one day a group of individuals removed the precious metal, and now you were just trading this paper that they were printing. And as time went on, if you could create resources out of thin air, there's no natural order to prevent you from slowing down to creating these resources. Now, not everybody has the brain capacity to extrapolate data in a means that they can conceptualize that this is not a valuable thing. Meaning, there's a couple different people. One, if you've never created value, think of when children are saying buy this, buy that, buy this, buy this. They don't understand how much time and energy that you have to use to create that value. Or if you're an individual that can print that value for whatever you need, whatever project or interest you want, say the Federal Reserve or a government agency, and just punch numbers into a computer, you start losing the understanding of the value of that. Now, people on the outside can start to see it and start feeling the effects of it. So when you can't print money and inflation starts hitting the products are not costing anything more. As time goes on, we become more and more efficient. And Keynes's idea was, since we become more and more efficient, then you can inflate the currency at the same speed of the efficiency, and it will hold its value and be able to be distributed more. But I'm sure some of you that can conceptualize ideas understand that when you give somebody the ability to create money out of thin air, they start inflating at a faster rate than the efficiency. A much faster rate. And if you're still involved in printing this stuff and you get it up front, then it's not going to affect you that more. And inflation doesn't really affect you if you can just print more, because you just keep printing more and having more money to buy the things that you need that are overinflated. Where the individual that cannot become efficient enough to get enough of this, starts falling behind, and gets affected by the inflation. So then some people wake up and they say, how can we create a currency that is got the ability to be infinitely divided so that it can be distributed as productivity increases, but does not have to be created and manufactured infinitely, just divided infinitely and tracked while remaining deflationary, meaning no more. There's a finite supply being created. And how do we release this at a decentralized rate into the community where it is released, separated, and divided based on demand and usage? Now, whether it was an intentional or accidental, or my guess is a little bit of both, Bitcoin solved quite a few of these problems, including, but not limited to, the fact that the energy expulsion used to mine cryptocurrency ties it to reality. Meaning, it's not a bug, but a feature that it costs quite a bit of energy in order to mine cryptocurrency with a proof of ownership instead of a proof of stake. And let me explain that. So once this piece of real estate is up and running, it's a piece of code. In order to prove that you have that piece of code stored, you have to have the key to get into it. So when you first purchase it and it gets locked in, individuals that are decentralized have computers that are running code to figure out the encryption. And when they do figure out that encryption, it gets mined, and then they each prove that it went from point A to point B and the ownership was transferred. And if they don't do that, or until they do that, and depending on the cryptocurrency, the block length, which is the amount of these data blocks of information that are being processed this particular way, goes through and determines that ownership. Then once you have the ownership of that key, you can store that with a seed phrase onto either on different types of wallets, hot wallets that are connected to the internet full time, warm wallets that can be transferred back and forth, they can be turned off and turned on, and cold wallets which need to be directly plugged into the internet, and then also paper wallets which are technically cold wallets but not as safe because paper can deteriorate and be destroyed. But once you have that key, then you, in the seed phrases, you can then prove that you have the ownership. It's like the deed to that digital property that has value. And the value is, once again, based on the demand that we talked about earlier of other people wanting to get at that property, that digital property. Trying to remember everything that I brought you and led you up to see if it would make sense to me if I never understood this stuff before. Obviously, if there's questions or concerns, put that below in the comments and I'll answer what I can. So back to that value now, you have a precious metal that's tied to the earth and causes a bunch of energy. It causes a certain amount of energy to extract. similar to Bitcoin, with the amount of energy it takes for those people to encrypt. And whereas somebody would go into, if they mined gold or precious metal, or sheared a sheep, or picked some apples or corn, they would want a wage. A gas fee is a wage to the miners who go through and do this encrypting of the codes to secure it, decentralized, to write into the ledger, which is basically just a spreadsheet, a digital spreadsheet online that's open source for anybody to see, that there was a transfer of ownership of this digital property. When you have value that you do for your fellow man and you do extra work, in the past, it would just disappear. There was no way to store value. So there was no reason to really work more than what you needed to work for to survive. Once you could store value, once there was a need or a want, to pickle foods, or to keep pelts longer, or to salt meats, whatever it was, to take that extra work that you had and prolong it, when the imagination kicked in of being able to see into the future and plan, in steps a precious metal. And what this is, it's a holding marker. So I don't know what I want. I had this, and I don't remember what it even was, but I did work for my fellow man, and I did so much work, and I don't even know what I want. So I have this gold, and I'm hoping that somebody else would want it. Now let's create another holding spot. I did work, I have gold, I give you the gold, you take the gold, but stop. Right when I have it and let go, before you grab it, it pauses again. It stays in thin air. It becomes an understanding that the transfer is going to happen, but we slow down time to a pause. Kind of like if you've ever played a role-playing game or watched a Magic or a Lord of the Rings or those type movies, they have these things called bag of holdings, where you take stuff and you put it into another dimension. We're taking real life work, real life energy, real life value that we've created for our fellow humans, and we're putting it into a secondary universe, a digital universe that we've created, a metaverse, a plane that we can see, a digital universe on the web with a ledger of numbers that cannot be held or seen, that shows that value. And it stops. It's the gold. So I'm standing in the United States and I want to buy something from somebody in China. Instead of taking this gold in my hand and handing it to them, which I can't, or putting in a bag and then mailing it, I put this gold into a Bitcoin and it sits there in that holding pattern, like I was handing it to that person. And then when I want it from them, I snap my fingers, I punch in my keys, and it gets transported magically out of that portal on the other side of the planet. Bam. And now they haven't quite touched it yet because they've kept it in their crypto thing. So it's still on hold. But then they want gold for it. So then they pull it out and buy a gold. Or they pull it out and they buy a bagel. Or they pull it out and buy a coffee. And they've essentially time-stopped value, kept on a digital ledger that's decentralized and not controlled by individuals, but controlled by the collective through individual understanding of a social ledger that is held in a conceptual idea of numbers on a digital piece of energy that floats upon the World Wide Web. Is that poetic? It's really beautiful when you think about it. Now, I mentioned that Bitcoin is finite, but it doesn't have to be. Now, the coding of the drip network that I talked about, we're going to rewind now. Go all the way back to the beginning of this video. I don't know if you forgot, but I remembered. The drip network prints and mints money 1% a day as needed to fulfill the needs. So in order to keep this from being printed on just to the end of time, there needs to be a way to deflate the currency. Within the crypto community, they call this burning, which means they take this bit of value and they, like if you were to burn it on fire, burn it, make it disappear, poof. So say there's 100 coins in existence and each was worth $1. So there's $100 worth of stored value. If there was a mechanism that removed 50% of that and burnt it away, made it disappear, so there was only 50 coins in circulation. In a perfect world, when this is perfectly manufactured, what would happen is, because 50% is gone of that value still exists within that coin set, but each coin now would be worth $2, but there's only 50 of them. So it drove the price up by removing some of them. But you need a mechanism in which that it's fair and voluntary, not forced and coerced. So when you create a forced coercive taxation from an individual, and there's multiple types of taxation. One particular type of taxation, which is an invisible pickpocket, as I like to call it, is the printing of money, inflation, through the Federal Reserve. Whereas you own $50, 50 coins, each worth $2, like I stated, and then they print off 50 more, but you don't know about it. So they hurry up and they spend those 50 while the value is at $2. And then the market recognizes that there's twice as many of them and they're not worth as much. So then yours that you thought were worth 2 go poof and are only worth 1. So you've lost a bunch of your value based on coercion, based on lying, stealing, manipulation, secreticity. Now, on top of that, if you were to actually look into MMT, which is monetary theory, which is an extension of Keynes's economics, the idea is that the government currency is the only currency and it's a fixed currency within a fixed system. If there was technically no what they call black and gray markets, whereas there's only one market. So they like to pretend that they have the only market, and that if you're outside the black or the gray, that you're ruining the system. But the idea would be that they print all this money, and then when you use this money, and create value, you have to give a portion of that value back in the form of taxes. And the taxes weren't supposed to actually pay for stuff. They were supposed to be burnt or destroyed. And so that would refix the currency. So if you borrowed or got 100K and you made 100K from it, and then you spend 40% of it, that tax would be done, and then everybody's currency would go back up because that gets burnt. And it's not reasonable. It doesn't happen because when you put these coercive things in, people that are smart enough to make money are smart enough to figure out the loopholes or create the loopholes or lobby for the loopholes in order to not pay those taxes. So then the currency doesn't get deflated. It continuously gets inflated. With the drip system, the contracts are immutable. They cannot be changed. Once they're put into place, there's no lawmakers that can come in and fix it. So everybody's playing the same game at the same time. When you buy $100 worth of drip, 10% of that gets destroyed and thrown back into the community, and you lose it. So there's a penalty for entry, a tax, if you will, a fee more to play. And when you subtract from the system, if you leave the system voluntarily to put that into another system, you also lose a percentage of it. So you get incentivized to keep it within the system. And then there's a whale tax. So as you save more and more and you never take it out of the system to pay a tax, you pay a higher and higher percentage till when you pull it out, you lose even more, which stabilizes the coin. As I speak today, within the next 7 days probably, back to being fun, Drip will be releasing something called Drip, Drop, Draw, which is a referral program. So it's spread these ideas that I'm talking to you about right now to individuals within this new type of fund banking system that's decentralized and unchangeable in this particular situation. Not all DeFis. Some DeFis can be changed. This is a system where people can enter, get tickets to win a jackpot, like a lottery, and the extra money that's collected gets burnt or put into the system to pay out. So some of the people that are part owners of the system will get paid, and then the rest of it gets taken out of the system on purpose. People risk that capital to deflate the currency in the hopes of winning that big jackpot. Now, that community is also tied to a decentralized exchange. And a decentralized exchange is basically, it's small now, but it'll grow. The Drip community just added cross bridges. So now I can buy on multiple blockchains or smart contracts and bring that stuff over instead of just one. It was on the Binance smart contract for the longest time. Now I can use Ethereum and Polygon, quite a few other ones you can bring over. But anyways, as this starts to grow, there's also a staking system and another game called Animal Farm that's kind of connected to this. It's the same developers. And this is an exchange that, as it grows, is also community owned, and the money that you put into that community becomes a stock. And when you get paid for putting coins there, so say I were to buy a cake coin and hold it in my wallet at home, it just sits there. If it goes up, I make money. If it goes down, I lose money. But if I were to let Animal Farm borrow that for leverage on their system, I can get paid an interest in their native token called dogs. And as I get dogs give me part ownership of the exchange. So every time somebody's making a transaction, I get a piece of it. And the more that you own, the bigger the piece is. So the bigger skin in the game for the individual, the more reward they get, the less reward. These tokens are set up differently. There's a lot of understanding that I'm not going to get into right now. But I want you to, I'm going to end this now because I'm home. plenty of information to go through here. The idea being, Bitcoin was created, I shouldn't even say created, Bitcoin was released in 2010. Who knows when it was created? But it was released in 2010. That's when people came on mainstream. It's still not widely understood, not widely used. But the technology of blockchain is amazing. If you don't believe me, look at all the propaganda saying that it isn't. Why is the government and the Federal Reserve spending, the banks, the legacy banking, spending so much money telling you that blockchain stinks instead of spending a ton of money saying how great their product is? And DeFi is maybe 3 or 4 years old. So if you want to start learning some of this stuff, it's really early. The internet is still an infant. And think about how long the internet's been around. And then you add blockchain to it. And then you add decentralized finance. This is the beginning of something very interesting that's going to have quite a bit of pushback. And if you leverage yourself the correct way, you're going to be on the whitewater. Most of us right now, if you're in the crypto space, I would say even there's been a few huge waves for those people that got into cryptocurrency early. But when you surf, you're on your board, and you're out there, you swim out, take a big risk, and you sit there, and you look over your shoulder, and you're waiting for a wave. And you have to start paddling first. You want to be out in front of that white water when it comes crashing down. But once you hit that wave at the right time, and it's behind you, and the momentum it's going, you get to ride it all the way into the end. So if people are still paddling out, they're going to miss those huge waves. I've missed a couple of cycles running a business and stuff, but now I have my stuff situated enough that I have enough money into the game that I'm playing and having fun. I would recommend that you do your own research. I would get on some blogs or get on some YouTube channels. I would start following some individuals that you trust. A good way to understand this is to do it yourself. I can't begin to tell you the amount of people I told to stay away from FTX. And it's like shoulda, woulda, coulda, but it was so clear for everybody in the crypto community that did any sort of research that the guy was running a scam. And the reason people missed the scam, I should make a whole different video on this, is because he technically wasn't running a scam. All he was doing was running a cryptocurrency company the same way that the Federal Reserve runs their monetary system and banking system. He was doing the exact same thing. The problem was he's not FDIC. So when it collapsed, he couldn't create more coins. But he was doing the same thing they did. That's why he's so confused. Because do I think that he's malicious? I kind of do. But at the same time, I think he was bewildered for a couple of reasons. One, they wanted to make an example of him. He was a patsy. The bankers wanted him to collapse. He did. He cost a lot of people a lot of money, got a lot of celebrities behind him. And now the bankers can use him as an example to fearmonger so that people will stay with legacy banking a little bit longer. Legacy banking will get themselves positioned for that white water to hit, and once they do, they'll make the shift really quick. Quite a few banks, if you look right now, you could, wallets are public domain. You can go see who's buying what. So you can go on to JP Morgan and these banks and see them and their commercials saying don't buy crypto. And then you can go see their portfolio and they're buying crypto. So what they're saying and what they're doing are two different things. But in the future, find some decentralized exchange and take advantage of it. And if you can't, find somebody knowledgeable that you trust that voluntarily gives you the ability to help. And this will be the last thing that I'm going to say. The way the drip, drop, draw is set up for the drip community, it's a referral, top-down, I guess you could call it multi-level marketing, but it's not free. So the person at the top gets in, and then they get people in, or she gets people in. And if they get people in and so on and so forth, they all help one another. But then in order to collect, they have to put more capital into that system. So it's a perpetual growing referral system that multiple people on multiple levels can get paid. But in order to get paid, they have to continuously put fresh capital into the project and support it. Voluntarily too. They can not get their referrals and not pay. And I believe it's like a 1-to-1. So like if you get $5 in referrals, you have to put $5 in. So $5 would get you. So $5 in would give you 5 tickets, and then you could collect your 5 tickets. So you'd get double the entries. You get $10 worth of entry tickets for $5, and you would be burning $5 or whatever, and then you'd have twice as big as a chance at the big jackpot. But part of the value that you're putting in would be monetary, and part of the value would be educational as an influencer who's referring the company. So, all right, I'm gonna clean up these boxes and stuff, and I want to see if I can get over and ship them out today. So, all right, it's been real.